What's up, gays? It's Taylor, and we're keeping it queer at WonderCon. This is Meghan Fitzmartin. She is a comic book writer. Some of her credits include Supernatural and DC Superhero Girls, and she is also our writer who solidified Tim Drake's Robin, who is our bisexual millennial disaster. We love you.
Thank you so much.
I do have a few questions for you.
Absolutely.
So, sometimes it's a little bit intimidating entering the comic book world, especially when you're queer. And I just wanted to ask, if someone is dipping their toes in the water, where should they start?
Tumblr.
Tumblr.
I think that there's a really strong queer community that is very welcoming and open on Tumblr. And I think once you get into a space where you feel safe, you are much more likely to find the different comics that you're looking for. So because I don't know what your favorite character is going to be. There's so many of them that are so amazing. But when you have a community around you who knows what to offer you and that you don't feel so intimidated by going into comic book stores or anything, you know that this will be the space to do it. So that's where I would find community for places. And then looking in anthologies. I know DC Comics does a lot of anthologies. Marvel does as well. And those are really good spaces for if you're not used to reading comics, these are characters that you fall in love with. Pride specials are really good for this, in fact, because DC Comics is coming out with a really cool Pride special. I'm not even a part of it. I'm just telling you that it's going to be really great. And that's really important and really cool. And that will be a really great way for you to find characters that you maybe don't know that you can that can become your new hyperfixation.
That's amazing. And I am a very new comic book reader, and I know that there's tons of different storylines and a lot of commitment when it comes to the comic book world, but you've written something that contributes to helping people kind of get into it a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Can you show what you've written?
Absolutely. So we've been selling a lot at WonderCon. I'm very lucky. But I have written a book called Tim Drake Robin. It is the start of Tim's sort of own book. We had 10 issues for Tim, and it follows him living on a marina, solving mysteries, because he is one of the greatest detectives in Gotham. But also it shows his relationship with Bernard. If you get volume 1, you sort of go through the first 6 issues are its own sort of contained story of Tim coming into his own, and then issue 2 or volume 2, which I don't have, has Tim's coming out story that involves him recognizing that maybe there's this guy and I have some strong feelings for him and I don't really understand why. And he goes on a date with this boy. It's Bernard. So that gives you a little bit more of a context, but both of them you can read sort of in isolation to get a sense of where they're at. And then you can explore more of the Tim Drake world, but this is a really good sort of introduction to the character in the world at large.
I love that as a fellow bisexual. And I also wanted to ask, what type of audience do you think would enjoy the stories that you tell?
I write stories specifically so that people feel loved and seen. And I write specifically, I will always have queer characters in my stories. I will always have neurodivergent characters in my stories because we are around and exist, and everybody exists, and I want that to exist in that space. And so I write for the younger generation, and I also write for women in 30s and 40s. Not always people who go to comic book stores, but you should, because there's stuff for you, and
yes.
So you should embrace that.
I love that. And then how did you get into the industry?
I got into the industry in a sort of roundabout way, because I went to school to be a youth pastor.
Oh my gosh.
I know. One of my favorite bomb drops on people. But I went to school to be a youth pastor because I wanted to give people a space to know that they are loved and that they belong. And I realized that ultimately what I wanted to do was do that through story. And so I moved to LA. I pursued working in television, which is how I worked on Supernatural. I also pursued animation, and animation is actually what got me into writing comics. I've always loved comics. I grew up reading comics, and through animation, I was able to realize that love of writing comics as well.
What a beautiful story. And then besides the main title for the Tim Drake series, what's the favorite comic that you've written?
I mean, most of my stuff has been for Tim Drake. A lot of that has been really focused on Tim. In terms of comics, otherwise, I've got a couple of one shots out in different spaces that I'm really proud of. I've been able to write for a book called Spring Breakout that includes a story that I wrote about the early Titans, so like Dick Grayson, being able to write him. So I'm trying to collect all the Robins, basically.
Yes, I
so
love
that's part of the goal.
Love
And
it.
then I have another story coming out soon in one of the anthologies, so keep an eye out for that.
Ooh, that's very exciting. Um, what is your favorite comic that you have not written?
Any Fantastic Four. I love Fantastic Four with my whole heart. It's all about family. It's about the family that we choose. It is a found family in and of itself. There are only two people that are technically related, and then two people who are married to each other.
Yeah.
They're not the same two, to be very clear, if people are not aware of it. But it's such a beautiful story, I think, of family and finding your family, and how devoted people can be to family. And I think that is incredibly relevant to a lot of people.
It is. So that's. I didn't even think about the chosen family aspect of
Yeah,
the
100%.
Fantastic Four, which makes me feel even more like warm and fuzzy about it. And my last question that I have is, if you could be any character, who would you be?
Oh wow, interesting. I mean, I like being me. I think I would be part of the Bat family. It sounds chaotic as heck, but I would absolutely be like, I would be Barbara or Stephanie. I think I could get on board with being
Sounds like a fun time.
absolutely a horrible time sometimes, but they both represent resilience and strength and femininity in a way that like you don't often get to see in comics, which I think is something that growing up was really helpful for me as well. So those are two of my absolute favorites.
That's amazing. We do have a little bit of time left. So my audience is specifically more a little bit like sapphic. I do have sprinkled in people from the trans community, like all over, like the LGBT community.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would just like to say, or yeah.
You are welcome here in comic spaces. You may not always feel welcome in comic spaces, but you are. There are many of us. I think every single one of us that I know. There are some real dickheads out there, but this is a space that has welcomed me, has welcomed all of us, and ultimately at the end of the day, comics should be about welcoming other people. Comics should be punk rock. Comics are punk rock, and what is more punk rock than loving each other and loving the space that we are in through stories? And so it's sometimes a really complex thing to get involved in comics. There's a lot of history, and you don't have to know all of it to get into it. And part of it is the discovery. That's a joy. But yeah, you are welcome in comics. You are welcome here in these spaces.
Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this interview, and I hope that you guys learn something and are interested in getting involved in the comic book world. And we're signing off here. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank
you
so
guys
much.
have a great rest of your day.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for watching. I love being queer and I love being at cons. And at WonderCon this year, I've truly noticed an expansion with embracing the LGBT community into the comic book world. And bringing more awareness to these spaces is super important to me. This is Powerline signing off. Love you, bye.